So before we officially start this video, I just want to apologize for not uploading last week. It was a whole story that I can tell you guys some other time. But the gist of that story is I was going to do a Minecraft episode on my Switch. I reset it to go upgrade it. Couldn't upgrade it. Brought it back and just kind of got stuck. Because everything was on an SD card. And other idiot actions I can elaborate on later if you want me to. And then I tried going to a backup video, but then my internet was crappy and I couldn't upload it. So now you're getting this one. Play the intro. That's right. As you can tell by the music playing in the background, I don't know if you can hear it. Maybe you can, I don't know. Anyways, we're talking about Final Fantasy VII today. You probably read the title, I don't know why I bothered saying that. Final Fantasy VII. Lately, I have been having a lot of fun with Final Fantasy VII, the remake. That fairly recently released on PS4. And yeah, I know internet literally a second passes and it's already on to the next thing. Which has been a weird thing with the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Everyone was excited for it, and then as soon as it came out, no one talked about it. It was odd. Anyway, at least to me. But anyway. Today, I wanted to talk about my personal preference, essentially, on whether or not I thought the remake did the original justice. Did the remake do what a remake should do and improve upon the original game? Or did it ruin the legacy of a classic? It should be stated now, this is all an opinion. And you are all subject to your own opinions. I'm subject to my opinions. Let's all be respectful and nice to each other in the chat below. Okay? Yeah, I'm gonna stop making my content just for kids. Because I'm talking about a game where the whole game is essentially a terrorist movement. I don't think it's exactly for kids. I'm gonna adjust this. Hold on. There we go, that's better. Anyways, enough stalling. First off, let's talk about the original game. Now, I don't have footage of the original game because it was on my Switch before everything crashed and I kind of lost it. But I did play it. I played it up to where I played the original up to where you're fighting the Airbuster, and then you crashed down to Aerith. And you had to help keep Aerith safe, essentially. And I actually just got to that point in the remake. And so I figured, that being the only place I played the original to, figured it was a good place to shove my thoughts in. The original was not fun for me. The original had a turn-based battle system that was also live, but it was still pretty much turn-based, which a lot of the original Final Fantasy fans before 7, of course, loved. That was what Final Fantasy just Final Fantasy was. Just not my thing. The only games I like to have a turn-based battle system is Pokemon. I don't know why, honestly, maybe just because I grew up with it. But other than Pokemon, I haven't really gotten to be able to get used to a turn-based battle system. And even if I can make Pokemon better, it would be having a live battle system like we see in this game. And so, obviously, I like the remake for that. The remake gets a point in gameplay, I guess. But that's not the only problem I had with the original. These other problems are probably due to just it being on the original PlayStation. But the original didn't feel good to move around in. I kept ramming into walls constantly. I kept having to try 5 million times to go to the position of a ladder. And it just felt awkward and clunky to move. And and that even compared to games like Mario 64, like Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Both games where, yeah, the movement was still a little bit clunky, but they made those games based on the fact of making the character fun to move. And if I'm not having fun moving around my character in a game, why would I stay to see what the rest of it has to offer? And that was kind of where I hit with Final Fantasy VII. It had a battle system I didn't really care for, and it had movement that made me more frustrated than the actual combat did. I don't think that was part of the planned difficulty of it. Might have been, I don't know. And on top of it, the old game just doesn't look good to me. Which, yeah, dated hardware, whatever. But Mario 64, you can look at that, and while you can say, yeah, it was pretty obviously from the N64, it still looks good. It looks like something you could grab today, and you'll be like, wow, this is kind of clunky and blocky. But it's not something that most people probably wouldn't immediately turn their nose up at, especially if they grew up with it. But most people wouldn't be too horrified by that. The original Final Fantasy VII had that, though, is the issue. The original Final Fantasy VII had a pretty big problem in that regard, where the character models were blocky, which is just the natural limitations of the hardware. However, they then had these realistic photos in the background. I'll try and show footage here of it if I can. It's overlaying me. If I can find any examples without getting in trouble. But and it was like they were trying to go for a realistic effect when they couldn't. And it just sucks considering games like Ocarina of Time, again, different console I know, but here, going back to the same console, games like Crash Bandicoot, games such as 007, they looked more realistic than that. So if they were truly trying to go for a realistic look, I feel like they could have worked harder on it. But then again, I don't know if they were going to, because the characters did look incredibly cartoony. That was back when they had Cloud wearing purple, after all. But they had realistic backgrounds. And all the enemies looked fairly realistic. And so it was always weird to me what they did with that game. And a lot of that, like I already said a million times, could just be due to it was on the original PlayStation. It was their first romp through 3D. Okay, fair enough. But if you took the two packages, Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VII Remake, I'd go for the remake. And because it just does a lot more of the things that I like out of a game. And now I'll tackle how it made things better. First off, battle system. Like I said, didn't care for a turn-based or turn-based-esque or whatever you call the battle system in the original. that just felt too restrictive. It felt weird, like a weird mix between this battle style I did like and then turn-based battle system. It didn't jive with me. The battle system in Final Fantasy VII Remake definitely jived with me. I was able to pick it up like that. I can't snap, I'm sorry. I would snap if I could. Maybe I'll put in a little Nintendo Switch sound. Yeah, that has nothing to do with this video. Well, I guess kind of because of the beginning part. But anyways. And I don't know why I keep gesturing over there. You can't see what's over there. You can't see that my screen's over there. But it's just interesting to me. Because the one thing that I would say they kind of screwed up on is the fact of not including the original battle system. Because, well, like I said, I personally prefer the way they did it in this game. That doesn't mean there aren't fans of the original who also deserve to relive their nostalgia. A lot of this game's sales, I feel, were built on the nostalgia of it is a modern day version of Final Fantasy VII. And it's like I said, the battle systems are really different, at least to me. And the fact they didn't even try, really, to implement the original at all in some fashion, or at least have that option there where it's like, okay, maybe you can go into the options and say, oh, I want the classic or whatever battle system, I want the retro battle system, whatever you want to call it. The whatever, original, classic, I don't care what you call it, just an option. But they don't have that option. That being said, I do still think this is the definitive version. Because another complaint I had with Final Fantasy VII, the original, is that they had the save option in the menu at all times. At any point in Final Fantasy VII, you could open up the menu, and you could see the word save there. But then it wouldn't let you save unless you were at a specific save point. Which I didn't get. Like, I'd understand, okay, adding a little bit of challenge, you need to get to certain points where you can save, fine, whatever. But why then would you have it in the menu? And so it always felt clunky when I'd go to save, because I'd have to stand on these points, which I already talked about, it's hard move in the game, so just doing that, I don't even want to talk about it, really. And then, after you finally get to stand on that point, you have to open up the menu and click the save button option. When in any other game that has similar systems, where you have to go to a point to save, like Majora's Mask, for example, you would just be able to tap A on the thing, you wouldn't have to open up any menu, you wouldn't have to navigate any menus, you would just be like, you'd click it, you'd press A, wherever the button was, and then it'd be like, hey, do you want to save? And you're like, yes, I want to save, and then it saved. And I just don't get why they go through the work of implementing it into the menu system, the pause menu, and then just not let you save wherever. It was confusing. Which is something they fixed in the remake. In the remake, you were literally able to save, as long as you're not in a battle, obviously. As long as you're not in the, like, right in the middle of a battle, you can save at any point. I guess any point where you're safe, technically, is a better way to say it. And on top of that, everything just feels fluid in the remake. Because it's one thing to have a live battle system. It's another thing to make that battle system work. Pokemon. Turn-based battle system, normally I wouldn't like it. It works. And I'm looking like an RPG fan, aren't I? I don't even like most RPGs. But anyways. With this being the case, I completely lost my point. Oh, right. Fluidity. There are things to make a combat system good or bad, no matter what. For example, it would be clunky and kind of bad still if they put in a live battle system, but then they made it to where whenever you pressed square for Cloud to swing his sword, just pretend this is his sword, he went like this. And then every time you press that button, the same animation had to play. So it'd be like, you have a horde of enemies in front of you, and it's like, whack, whack, whack. Which is a retro-style game, but it doesn't make it as fun, especially when combat is kind of what you're focusing on in this game. I don't know if you know, but there's a lot of combat in both versions of this game. And it just feels a lot more fluid to have him go like that and do a combo if you press it repeatedly, rather than have it be those solid motions. And that's another thing. It's like just making or breaking a battle system in general. Because you can put any battle system in any game, and it can very easily be a battle system that maybe people who wouldn't normally like it because of how you did it. Undertale is a great example of that. It had an on paper clunky battle system. It seemed complex, it seemed different, it seemed like you'd never be able to understand it. But because of how it implements it, and because of how it functions, you're able to understand it in seconds. And that's what makes it fun to use. Because then once you understand it, you can start to explore it. And the thing about it is also complexity. I'm not normally a complex person. I like a game where I can just swing my sword around. But complexity can add a lot of variation to a game. And it is in that variation that things can get fun and interesting. And I honestly do say, you can't just battle any way you want necessarily. You do have to balance it out with a bunch of different aspects in the remake. But it makes it fun. It makes it fun and interesting to learn this battle system because there's so much you can do. You can do a heavy-hitting combo, and then you can smack your way into one of your abilities. For example, one of my favorites recently has been putting Cloud into Punisher mode, his special ability, and then doing a combo until the natural end of the combo comes, and then going right into his ability Triple Slash. Again, I'll show footage over top of myself because of it. And it's just a fluid battle system. And on top of it, you feel like you're earning things, because you can have a beat 'em up. But if it doesn't feel like you're achieving anything in that combat, people aren't going to be interested. Maybe they'll be interested in it to get their anger out every once in a while, but they won't be interested in it for long, or for a very reasonable purpose. They'll just be kind of mindlessly slogging their way through. What makes it interesting are things like experience points, leveling up your character, and getting bonuses because you decided to take part in the battle system. And in a game as combat focused as Final Fantasy VII, it's really important to have something like that. And I think the way that Final Fantasy VII Remake does it is really good. Essentially, you earn battle points, and then with those battle points, they then go to upgrading your weapons. Because each weapon has a core, it starts off with one, and then you get more cores as you continue to level up. And within that core, there's usually about 4 or 5 things that you can increase. Your max health, your max damage output, all this stuff, even extra materia slots, to give yourself more spells and more abilities to use. And it just seemed... And it's just a combat system that has a lot of complexity to it, but at the same time it's easy enough to understand that you want to learn about it. And trust me, if you want to get good at this game, you're gonna have to learn it. I had to learn that the hard way. And another thing is, unlike other RPGs, or even the original, where you only controlled Cloud, and the other characters did their own thing, in this game, a big part of that battle system that I've been mentioning is switching between the characters and knowing how to use every single person. For example, in the new version of the Airbuster boss fight, there is a section where he will all of a sudden take to the air, and Tifa and Cloud can't do crap but try and avoid his attacks. And so you have to switch over to Barret so you can gun this thing down. And as you gun it down, it will eventually come back, making Cloud and Tifa useful again. And while yes, you can sit around as Cloud or Tifa and wait for the NPC Barret to deal the damage, but then you won't be very successful, is what I just tried to say there in that word vomit. And it's just the kind of game that rewards you learning and developing. But at the same time, it tries to leave it open so you can battle how you want. It doesn't force you into a specific way of battling like other games do that have a complex battle system. Because normally complex battle systems are a bunch of complexities around having to fight a specific way or having to need to change it up to tackle different opponents. And while yes, you do need to vary it up to tackle different opponents, you can't use the same exact strategy every single time because opponents just work differently. For example, and that's another thing that makes the game interesting to play, is in a turn-based battle system, you can't really do that. No matter what, it's always just selecting an option, and you just might have to go to a different option. That's the only real difference in a turn-based battle system. For, again, example Pokemon, you aren't getting unique opponents. Yeah, they'll make you weaker to one attack or the other, but essentially you're still just picking an option and pressing A and seeing how it does and hoping it's effective. But then you have the fighters in this game. This game starts off with fairly basic enemies. Soldiers. Just basic level troops. And you find that you can clear through them fast with his Punisher mode. It doesn't matter how you take them out, because they're basic. But the fastest way to take them out is with the Punisher mode because of how heavy hitting it is. Same thing for the Hellhounds. The best way to take them out is to use that Punisher mode. However, then you have the Shock Troopers. Troopers that move incredibly fast. And if you're Cloud in Punisher mode, they will wreck you. So, quite quickly. And I remember I kept doing it. I'm like, why is this not working? I'm using the Punisher mode. I should be dealing more damage. What's going on here? And it was because of the downside. You can't just stay in the highest hitting mode, because the downside to it is the fact that you're slower, you're clunkier, you become a tank essentially. And it's that makes the game even more interesting and adds a little bit more complexity. Because if it was in the original, there isn't that. You attack, you have the option to do a spell, and then at a certain point you get your limit break. And which I wish they would make it more obvious in the remake when you had your limit break. Because yeah, they do still have a bar off to the corner, but you're not focused on the corner. You're focused on doing your thing and then glancing down at the corner every once in a while to keep an eye on your health. And a lot of times I completely miss that I have my limit available until I go into the menu and then all of a sudden I see, oh, a limit's available. I wish they would do something like a big flashy aura or something, or maybe just like the futuristic text the game is so fond of, just like flashing on screen being like limit ready or something like that. Not even saying anything, just saying on the screen limit ready. I feel like that would add a lot to it, but that's just my personal opinion. Again, as this entire video basically is. And yeah, that's really my thoughts. I honestly think it's better than the original. But I'm not the only one in the world with an opinion. I'm far from the only person in the world with an opinion. So please, give your opinions down below, and I'm sure we'll all be nice and respectful to the people down there, right? We'll be nice and behave ourselves. We won't say anything mean, right? I'm trusting you. Don't make me turn off comments. I'm not gonna turn off comments. I don't know why I threat that. But just be nice, okay? Be nice. Otherwise there'll be even less uploads. Feel free to subscribe. I'm trying to upload every week. Things happen sometimes, though. I guess is the moral of the story.